Hello and welcome to Codecs and Rookies, a Metal Gear podcast. I am your host, Alex Ross. So, I'm an Ohioan and host of the Final Resonant Gaming channel. I'm also a urban fantasy and paranormal fiction author. It's been on my bucket list for quite a while to host my own podcast, though I'm currently a co-host on another podcast called Roy's Rants. However, that is 100% Roy's baby, and I've kind of just been along for the ride. I've been searching for the perfect topic to create my own podcast, but I really wanted to commit to something I knew would be doable and have a clear ending. So, my favorite video game podcast, Ultimate Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy podcast, had the tall order of beating all 85 Final Fantasy related games in addition to the various books, movies, card games, etc., etc. While I would love to tackle such a feat myself, the reality is I think I need to start small and make sure this is something I'd be interested in doing long term. Podcasting, I mean. The Metal Gear series has 10 mainline titles in addition to multiple spin-offs, remakes, and other related entries. With Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater remake being fresh in everybody's mind, I think now is the perfect time to start. So, you might expect a Metal Gear podcast to be hosted by a series veteran that knows all the lore, characters, and games like the back of their hand. Well, ladies and gentlemen, throw that expectation out the window. Off the bridge, if you'd like, because I've never actually beaten any of the Metal Gear games. Now, I'm not completely oblivious to them. I've played about an hour and a half of Metal Gear Solid and then about 3 hours of the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. My hope is that I can bring a unique perspective as somebody who knows next to nothing about these games outside of a couple of YouTube videos. I figure I'll either frustrate or delight longtime fans of the series with various predictions and takes as I play through this legendary series. Or perhaps there will be people who are also looking to play the Metal Gear series for the first time and want to have somebody to play along with, somebody that is also a freshman to the series. No matter which side you're on, I hope I can bring an entertaining perspective. So, the games I've decided to include in this podcast, for now at least, are Metal Gear Solid, Delta, Snake Eater, Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid Ground Zero, Metal Gear Solid 5, and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. As for the other titles in the Metal Gear franchise, for now those games are a maybe, but ideally I would love to cover every single Metal Gear game. So I've thought about structuring the episodes as sort of a in-depth recap of each game's development, story, characters, gameplay, music, and any other points of interest I deem notable. I would also love to have audience interaction. That means answering questions, emails, stuff like that. My goal is to post at least one episode a month or every other month for games that are a little bit longer. And at times, I may split episodes into multiple parts, depending on how big the recap ends up going. I want to record my thoughts on these games as I play through them. I think this will be a unique experiment, especially for me, who has never done something like this before, let alone trying to host a podcast by myself. But my gear goal, if you will, is to have this be as loose and but also be organized at the same time. Like for this first episode, I've created a write-up for the very beginning, but I also want to be personable, and I've tried to study as many other podcasts that have one host as I can, because as much as I would love to maybe host this with somebody else, I've not really been able to narrow down a co-host as of yet, but who knows, I may end up bringing in somebody else for one or more of these reviews or podcast episodes for the Metal Gear series. For those that are newer, or maybe you haven't touched a Metal Gear game in quite a while, the Metal Gear series is a franchise created by Hideo Kojima. Developed and published by Konami, the first game, Metal Gear, was released in 1987 for the MSX home computer. Players often take control of Special Forces operatives, usually Solid Snake or Big Boss, who is assigned the task of finding the titular superweapon, Metal Gear, which is like from what I understand, a mech or walking tank. So, I think when Kojima was developing this series, it's clear that he, even just having played less than 5 hours total of this massive series, it's clear that he's a fan of old spy movies. Like even the beginning of Metal Gear Solid Delta feels like the beginning of a Bond movie. And there's clear influences from real life events, the Kennedy assassination, the Cold War, especially the nuclear weapon inspections, quote unquote, for Iraq and Iran, and growing distrust with governments across the world, I think are huge parts of what inspired the Metal Gear Solid's series as it continued on. And I think even an event like September 11th was also influential on the series in the 2000s. It's interesting. I think that the games at the time were limited, especially in the late 80s, and that's why he went for a stealth mechanic rather than a full-on action like maybe what the studio wanted to, which is ironic because the games, while having their fair share of action, are well known to be some of the best stealth games. It's no secret that the Metal Gear series is legendary. Although I'd never played them myself, I think most people, until recently obviously, I think most people would recognize Solid Snake. He's appeared in other games like Super Smash Brothers. I think that he is up there as far as like Cloud Strife and Master Chief, as far as recognizable video game characters to people that don't even play video games. I had a friend that I used to work with at my bottled water job that was huge into the series, and I can remember him talking about it. And this was, of course, 6 or 7 years ago, so a long time ago. So I messaged him, letting him know that I was playing through the series, and obviously he was very, very excited. And the series has been wild so far, and it's like I feel like I've barely touched the surface with how crazy these games are going to get. Like, obviously, I kind of knew about Kojima from his interviews, and then I've played Death Stranding, so it's not like I wasn't accustomed to his brand of creativity, if you will. But the beginning, none of that could really prepare me for the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, I feel like the beginning of Metal Gear Solid is very tame in comparison. And going forward, I want to stay away from any spoilers from the audience or myself even. And I want this to be going by each game, trying to go by release date, because I feel like that's the way that they're intended to play. But I'm going to start with the remake of 3 because that is the newest game, and we're going to start with that, and then we're going to move through the game series through a release date. And I'm hoping that will be a cool and unique experiences for both older Metal Gear fans and newer ones that are getting to the series now. And I'll reiterate, I'm not an expert on the series. I'm also not an expert podcaster. I've only really listened to them, and even being a co-host on Roy's Rants, I am in no way, shape, or form trained in radio or anything like that. But I don't think anybody that's I've actually really listened to had much experience in radio or even had like college training or however you want to say it. And again, I want to try to keep some of the episodes both informative but also a little bit free form, so it feels like a discussion, maybe even a book slash movie slash gaming club with a friend, to make it feel, although at the same time professional but also unprofessional, so that way it doesn't feel so stilted and robotic. And I'm open to, of course, any critiques or suggestions as far as how the show should go, so please feel free to share that. I'll have an email soon, I hope, but for now you can email any suggestions, questions to Zoom, no caps, 22192 at yahoo.com. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned.